You know, America's best days have yet to come, and that's because conservatives like you live the values of our great country. The Heritage Foundation ensures your voice is heard in the Washington swamp every day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values, and they won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. What's taking place in these cities and in these blue states, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing short of breakaway government. Whether it's L.A., whether it's Portland, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Seattle, other big cities, breakaway government. What I mean by that is you have effectively these enclaves of Democrat Party control, mayors and city council, mostly in blue states with Democrat governors, that will not allow the federal government to enforce federal law under our federal Constitution, in this case, the immigration laws and deportation. We now have instances where mayors have told the local police to stand down. We have now instances, as we saw last night and before, federal law enforcement, ICE, and others under attack, physically under attack, by waves of riotous, violent Democrats, effectively. I call this the private Democrat Party militia, where they want mostly illegal aliens, actually, but citizens too, to rise up, to take on ICE, federal law enforcement, to prevent the president from enforcing federal immigration law that was passed over many decades, in which he has the constitutional right and obligation to execute federal law. We see this with Newsom in California. We see it with Pritzker in Illinois. We see it in Oregon and Portland, and we've seen it elsewhere. Now, the president does have the ultimate authority under the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act of 1807/1808. It's a federal law that authorized the president to deploy the military and federalize National Guard troops within the United States to suppress civil unrest, insurrection, and rebellion. That's correct. It's under Title 10 of the U.S. Code. You can check it out yourself. It's an exception, a significant exception, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, that typically prevents federal military forces from acting as domestic law enforcement. Now, the act permits the president to deploy troops domestically under three main conditions. When a state requests it, so that's not happening here. when federal law enforcement is impractical due to unlawful actions against U.S. authority. That's the key right there. Or when domestic violence or conspiracies prevent inhabitants from exercising their constitutional rights. So it's under the second condition. Under the second condition. Now, this act has been triggered more than you might know. It was passed in 1807, and it was triggered in 1808 by Thomas Jefferson on violations of the Embargo Act around Lake Champlain. It was triggered in February 10, 1831 by Andrew Jackson. A rebellion suppressed, a slave rebellion suppressed. January 28, 1834, riot over labor disputes in Maryland. Again, Jackson called out the military. It was triggered by Abraham Lincoln, April 15, 1861, the secession of southern states, the American Civil War. He triggered the Insurrection Act. October 17, 1871, Ulysses S. Grant used the Insurrection Act to put down white supremacists and insurgency by former Confederates. He used it on May 22, 1873, to put down violence in Louisiana after a contested election. Grant used it on December 21, 1874, again, to put down white supremacists in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Grant used it. You can see how horrendous the post-Civil War period was. Used it in 1874 to put down an attempt by white supremacists to overthrow the government in Arkansas. Grant used it again, September 15, 1874, to put down a coup in Louisiana. He used it again, October 17, 1876, to put down white supremacist paramilitaries in South Carolina. October 7, 1878, Rutherford B. Hayes used the Insurrection Act. There was a war between rival business gang factions in Lincoln County, New Mexico. Chester Arthur, May 3, 1882, gang violence in the Arizona Territory, gang suppression. He used it. Grover Cleveland, November 7, 1885, and February 9, 1886. Riots against Chinese citizens in the Washington territories occurred in 1885 and 1886. He sent in the military to protect them. Woodrow Wilson used the Insurrection Act, April 28, 1914, to strike an uprising in Colorado. Warren Harding used it August 30, 1921, to stop a strike and uprising in West Virginia. June 21, 1943, Franklin Roosevelt to stop a race riot in Detroit. September 23, 1957, you might recall this one, Dwight Eisenhower called in the National Guard. Black students were being prevented from going to high school in Little Rock. September 30, 1962, John Kennedy used the Insurrection Act, siege and riot at University of Mississippi due to racial integration. June 11, 1963, used it to Governor Alabama, who forbade black students from attending school in Tuscaloosa. September 10, 1963, John Kennedy used the Alabama National Guard, again, to open up integration to schools to black kids. Lyndon Johnson, he used the Insurrection Act. Alabama policemen were suppressing protesters in Selma. July 24, 1967, again, riots in Detroit, to put down the riots in Detroit. April 5, 1968, Johnson used the Insurrection Act to put down riots in multiple states after the assassination of Martin Luther King. November 24, 1987, Ronald Reagan used the Insurrection Act. I was there when it happened. The riot in Atlanta over announced deportations of Cuban detainees. I was chief of staff to the Attorney General. I was the top point staffer working with the Attorney General in the White House, among many other agencies. It was a vicious, brutal, violent, bloody riot. And we called out the Marines, actually. September 20, 1989, and May 1, 1992. George H.W. Bush, in the first instance, looting in the United States Virgin Islands after Hurricane Hugo, he sent in the military. And the second time, the riots in Los Angeles after the acquittal of policemen regarding Rodney King. He used it for riot suppression. So it is not unusual to use the Insurrection Act, the United States military, could be the Marines or any part of the military, to put down organized violence in defiance of federal law and public safety. Now we have governors, like we had governors in the segregationist South, like we had elements in the Confederate South, among others. The Democrat Party going back to its roots, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, nullification of federal immigration law, obstructing the deportation of illegal aliens, including vicious criminals. I've been talking about this for month after month after month on Fox, on The Blaze, on radio, posting it on social media, and I want to thank people who have finally figured it out and now are writing columns regurgitating on what I said. They should. Of course, without attribution, I get it. I get it. Everybody wants to be smarter. It's not the way to roll, but that's the problem. That's the times we live in today. So right now, Portland, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois are breakaway cities under the tutelage of breakaway Democrat governors. There's rioting by illegal aliens and their supporters in these cities. There's Antifa in Portland, which is a violent, law-breaking organization that has attacked that city for half a decade and longer. In Chicago, you have a mayor who is a Marxist, who hates law enforcement, and crime is through the roof. You have a governor who wants to be president, a billionaire who thinks the way you become president is to stop the enforcement of federal law. We have a supremacy clause under our Constitution that does not allow these breakaway cities and states. Sanctuary cities and states are trying to nullify federal immigration laws. I've said again and again. It's now violent. The governor and these mayors, the governors and these mayors are essentially using illegal aliens and their supporters, Antifa and other domestic terrorist type organizations, to fight federal law enforcement, to usurp the federal Constitution. We haven't seen it this bad since the lead up to the Civil War. Now they're electing Marxist Islamists who hate our country, who hate it, who hate our founding, who hate the West. All Democrats. Oh, no, they're democratic socialists. They find support and power in the Democrat Party. And the Democrat Party operatives, the language they use, they call it the whistleblowing. They're encouraging violence, despite the fact that Donald Trump was almost assassinated twice, despite the fact that Charlie Kirk was murdered. He was assassinated. Despite the fact that Steve Scalise was critically wounded and almost died a decade or so ago by a Bernie Sanders supporter. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This definitely has the stench of the Civil War. We're not there yet, but it has the stench. And that's exactly what's taking place. These are not neo-Confederates. They are effectively Confederates for what that word means. They are breakaways. And they're trying to ensure the power of the Democrat Party, the power of their ideology, by maintaining in this country people who are not supposed to be here, by using their power, their local law enforcement, or the lack of use of local law enforcement to help federal law enforcement to ensure that these people stay. And there's one other thing that is truly notorious. They're sending a signal to the U.S. Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. And this is my great fear, that they will intimidate enough of these justices. There is literally zero constitutional basis for birthright citizenship. There's not a single statute that codifies birthright citizenship. But these breakaway cities and states are making it abundantly clear that they are prepared to go full-bore violent. And so are their rogue, detestable, activist, radical federal judges. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The youth of today will be the leaders of tomorrow, and it's more critical now than ever that we train up the next generation to fearlessly defend conservative values. The Heritage Foundation's Young Leaders Program equips young conservatives with the principled foundation and policy knowledge needed to stand up in a world increasingly hostile to conservatives. The Young Leaders Program is more than an internship. Participants work right alongside Heritage professionals, and they learn valuable workplace skills. They attend weekly policy briefings from Heritage's top experts and have access to practical skill-building workshops. They visit historical sites in Washington and even unparalleled mentorship opportunities. If you or anyone in your life is looking to spend a semester in our nation's capital with the best and the brightest of the conservative movement, please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Go there today. Learn more about the Young Leaders Program. Applications for the spring semester close October 5th, so you have to hurry. Our nation's future depends on patriots like you, spreading the word to make sure the next generation is equipped. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, there has been a campaign to vilify. By the way, let me start this. I told you the other day, I've never taken 1 cent from any foreign government, including Israel. Not a meal, not a plane trip, not a hotel room, not a anything. Zero. Zero. Not directly, not indirectly, not in kind, nothing. Now, what amazes me about this is Qatar and these other Arab countries, these other fiefdoms, these other inbreds, have spent billions in our country. Buying businessmen, buying politicians, buying influencers and podcasters. Nobody asked them about the source of their money, and they've got blood all over their hands. They're bought and paid for propagandists for Islamists. Now, if anybody prominent accuses me of this, I'm going to sue their ass. I'm the cleanest guy on radio. Well, there's many of us, but certainly among them. But that's not going to happen. We're not going to put up with it. And the other thing is, we're getting hit on my sites when I post things. Some of you are saying, oh, these comments are so horrendous. By foreign government bots, particularly out of Pakistan. So just understand that a lot of the crap and the claptrap and hideous words that you're seeing, some of it's clearly from domestic sources, but a lot of it is from Muslim and Arab countries. I'll be right back. The Heritage Foundation built the Young Leaders Program because they're committed to investing in the next generation of America's leaders. Now, this mission is even more important now, as we need a new generation of young leaders fearlessly defending the truth. Every semester, Heritage trains and mentors more than 50 interns who are committed to the principles of individual freedom, free enterprise, limited government, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. Through policy briefings, professional development workshops, lectures from the top conservative thinkers on first principles of conservatism, and more. Heritage equips young conservatives with the timeless truths, practical knowledge, and relevant skills needed to protect and advance conservative principles and policies. If you know young conservatives hungry for a challenge, please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Find more information about the program and its impact on young conservatives. Applications for the spring semester close October 5, so you gotta hurry. Don't wait. Our nation's future depends on conservatives like you taking action to spread the word. Again, that's heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Go there today. Let's do our part in training up the next generation of America's leaders. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, America's Paul Revere. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
So the mayor of Chicago has about a -7 popularity poll number. Just declared ice-free zones. So it's a breakaway city. It's a city with a mayor who actually is copying the worst of the Confederates up to and including the Civil War, with his nullification of federal immigration law and their attempt to usurp the president's power under the federal Constitution to enforce that law. An ice-free zone, he's declared. Sanctuary city, he's declared. These are all efforts to break away from the federal government in this regard anyway, and they cannot be put up with, and eventually they're going to need to trigger the Insurrection Act, which I just read you the long list that's been triggered about 20, 25 times in the past, starting with Thomas Jefferson. Now, before we get to that, there has been an insidious, vicious campaign against the Prime Minister of Israel out of the pages of Axios and other places, probably mostly by staffers and bureaucrats and the usual, trashing the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump. And it's been an ongoing propaganda campaign from within our government, too, by the way. I want you to listen to what the president had to say about this today. And our friend Dinesh D'Souza is with us, and I want him with us because he has this fabulous movie we want to talk about. But I also want his thought about this as he listens in. Cut 6, go.
It was reported by Axios over the weekend that you had called with Prime Minister Netanyahu where you told him to stop being so negative and to take the win when it came to Hamas's response to that. Is that true?
No, it's not true. He's been very positive. He's been very positive on the deal. Everybody is. I think every nation is. We have just about every nation working on this deal and trying to get it done. Something that you could say 3,000 years if you look at it in certain ways, or you could say centuries, but this is a deal that incredibly, everyone just came together. They all came together. No, Israel's been great. They've all been good, Caitlin. And
in the negotiations, do you have any red lines in terms of Hamas disarming and whatnot? Are there any places you're willing to do?
If certain things aren't met, we're not going to do it. But I think we're doing very well, and I think Hamas has been agreeing to things that are very important.
This is why when I read things in the paper about Israel and the Jews and Netanyahu, senior White House staff, anonymous, or senior officials, anonymous, people in the know, anonymous, I mean, I attack them, but I know it's not Trump. That's Trump. Dinesh D'Souza, am I right?
Trump here is trying to do something that has been attempted for 50 years with no success. I mean, Mark, you and I are old enough to remember the Carter peace plan and the Clinton plan. There have been so many presidential efforts to fix this, and they haven't even made an inch of progress. And here you have Trump on the verge of doing something really quite remarkable. And how wicked it is that you have people here in America trying to drive a wedge, a poison pill between Trump and Netanyahu right in the middle of this process. I mean, it's hard to believe that these are people who have the best interests of the U.S. or MAGA at heart. I don't think they do.
No, you're 100% right. Now, I wanted to bring it back because I want people to watch this movie. You know, I've now watched this. I'm going to tell you something. This is a tour de force. This is incredible what you've done here. The Dragon's Prophecy, folks, this brand new film. And, you know, in radio like TV, Dinesh, you know this as well as anybody, people come and go in the audience. You know, they have different things to do. I want you to remind people of what this tour de force is all about and why you did it. I mean, it goes back to the Bible. I mean, nobody has really presented it this way.
That's right. We've heard a lot of kind of cliches from the left. Israel is a colonizer. We've heard now critiques from the right. But what the film does is it enlarges the perspective. One of the extremely startling points that is made by Jonathan Cahn, who's the author of the book, The Dragon's Prophecy, is that some of these things we're seeing in front of us, October 7th, the war, the aftermath of what's going on, there are parallels to this in the Hebrew scriptures. You can find these parallels in the battles fought by the ancient Israelites 3,000 years ago. Now, when I first heard that, I found it a bit hard to believe, but Khan presses this point with a certain kind of rigor and determination that is just so much fun to watch. He says, for example, that the name Hamas, which, by the way, in Arabic means something like force or strength, but in Hebrew, Hamas means violence. It means destruction. And you find it in the Hebrew scriptures. It says things like, Lord, save me from Hamas, or the men of Hamas. Hamas dwells in the dark places. This is straight out of the scriptures. So what we do in this film is we go back to the past. We also draw on biblical archaeology to authenticate the historicity of the Bible. And not only that, but to show through clay seals and stones and inscriptions that the Jews were in this land going back 4,000 years. They are the original or aboriginal, if you want, inhabitants of this land. And then we bring it to the present, and we also look at some biblical prophecy pointing to some signposts in the future. So it's a unique film for me because it integrates politics with spirituality, with the Bible, and even with a hint of biblical prophecy.
And you demonstrate unequivocally that this is the land of the Jews, that the so-called Palestinians have no claim to any of it and never have.
Well, here's the weird thing, is that the people who lived in Gaza 3,000 years ago were called the Philistines, but they are not Semitic peoples. They are not Arabs. They came from Europe. They came from across the Mediterranean. They came from places like Cyprus. And so it is a matter of fact that the Palestinians, so-called, don't have their roots in Gaza the way the Jews do. And what's remarkable now is not just that they're authenticating the prophet Isaiah or King David. You'll find minor figures in the Bible mentioned in only a sentence or two, and suddenly a clay seal comes out of the ground, and it's the royal steward of King Hosea in the 6th or 7th century BC, or it's some guy who was hanging around with King Zedekiah in the time that Jeremiah was preaching against him. So there's no way. You know, people said for decades the Bible was written centuries later by people who made stuff up and they embellished things. Nobody would even know who was the royal steward to the king 300 years later, and yet here is his seal, and it's in the Bible, and here it is jumping out of the Bible and into the pages of archaeology and history.
The name Palestinian, that nomenclature, was actually invented, wasn't it? 1965 by an Egyptian.
Well, it was invented by an Egyptian named Yasser Arafat. But guess what? Where did he get it from? Going back to the early centuries after Christ, what really happened was that there were some Jewish revolts. And the Roman emperors, to insult the Jews, decided, let's punish them by taking the name of their land, Israel and Judah, and get rid of it. And let's replace it with the name of their ancient enemies, the Philistines. Palestine. So this was actually an infliction on the Jews by the Romans. And then fast forward to the middle of the 20th century, and this name was picked up. So it was essentially dishonest from the beginning, and it remains dishonest today.
Are you hoping, in addition to generally educating as many people as you can about this, it's very propitious. I mean, the timing, it couldn't be better. But also pushing back on the elements, certainly on the left, the Islamist Marxist elements, but certainly on the kook right, the sort of the denier elements, which seem to not only be unloading the worst kind of poison on the Jewish faith and Jews, but also on Christianity with this notion of replacement theory.
The replacement theory, I think, is utterly heretical. It's heretical not just to some dispensational or Protestant stuff. It is heretical from the point of view of mainstream Christianity. I believe it was Pope John Paul II who said very famously, I'm paraphrasing him slightly, he says it is the promised land for everybody. I'm sorry, it is the holy land for everybody, but it is the promised land to the Jews. And what he's talking about here is that the covenant of the Old Testament with Abraham remains intact. Yes, spiritually there is a new covenant in Jesus, but that doesn't mean that the old covenant has been repudiated or somehow God gave the land to Abraham and his descendants in perpetuity, and now suddenly he's changed his mind and wants to take it back. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm. And yet this attitude is being pushed on broadcast platforms and is certainly embraced by the most sort of poisonous elements out there, no?
It is, and I think it's even more dangerous from the right. Look, we expect it to be coming from the left, not to mention the fact that on the left you have this insidious alliance between the cultural left, the kind of LGBTQ left, and the Islamic jihadis. Some people have called it the red-green alliance, red referring, of course, to communism and green to the colors of Islam. So we kind of expect it from the left. But this coming from the right, I think, is particularly poisonous. It divides MAGA. It essentially helps radical Islam because, look, there's a straight fight. The nation of Israel is fighting for its life against the global jihadis. To undermine Israel is quite simply to help them, the global jihadis, and it's also to help the cultural left in this country. So how can that be good for MAGA? How can that be good for America? It's not. And yet here it is being aggressively pushed, and a lot of young people are falling for it. It's part of the reason I wanted to jump foursquare into this debate. What the film does is it both is timely, but it's also timeless. It engages this debate. I take the question that Tucker Carlson posed to Ted Cruz. I take it straight to Netanyahu, and I have Netanyahu commenting directly about it, commenting on the Jewishness of Jesus. It's all extremely fascinating. But then I want the film to move into a kind of transcendental mode where it rises above this debate and gives people, in a way, the spiritual resources for the kind of renewal that I heard talked about at Charlie Kirk's funeral service. The idea of rising above all this, recognizing that it's a spiritual struggle and that ultimately we have to take sides, each one of us, whether we want to be really on the side of God or whether we want to be on the side of the dragon.
And that's the movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. It is a fantastic movie. I want you to check it out. Today, Wednesday, it's released in a number of theaters and online as well. Where do people go, Dinesh, if they want to go to the theater, they want to watch it online? It's ubiquitous. People need to get their hands on this. Where do they go?
The best place to go and the one place to go is the website. It is the Dragons, plural, the Dragons Prophecy Film.com. It's in theaters tonight, but it's also in theaters Wednesday night. And then Thursday it goes into streaming and DVD. You have to buy your theater tickets from the website. You can't buy them at the theater. You can't buy them at Fandango. Just go to the dragonsprophecyfilm.com, plug in your zip code, and boom, the theaters around you will pop up. Buy your tickets. See it in the theater if you can, because I make these films in a highly kind of cinematic and spectacular way. So there's nothing like being with fellow conservatives, fellow Jews and Christians, watching it together. That's a unique experience. But if you want to watch at home, no problem. Wait till Thursday or sign up for the streaming now, and you can watch at home as well this week.
Very, very, very important movie. Mr. Producer, make sure again that we put up that site. I want to encourage you folks to go to the theater. If you can't, to watch online come Thursday, whatever you do, just watch it. It's going to have a major impact on you and a major pushback against so much of the lying and the static and the propaganda from the media and self-appointed influencers. Dinesh D'Souza, fantastic, my friend. God bless you, and thanks for doing this.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you too. What a great guy, and his wife's great. We met there, part of my family, and he and his wife at this City of David special event. City of David, predates Jerusalem, and they've been able archaeologically to uncover more and more and more of it. It's absolutely stunning. And you have where the where the pilgrims walked, where Jesus walked, the pool that he used and others used. Jesus was a practicing, well-known rabbi, raised in a Jewish belief system. When you read the New Testament and you read the people who surrounded him, they were Jewish. The connection between Judaism and Christianity is not debatable. Not debatable. For faithful Christians who understand this. And there's a battle now underway between the anti-Semites who try to wrap themselves in the Christian church and real Christians and pastors and others saying, wait a minute, you don't get to rewrite our faith like you're trying to rewrite the faith of Judaism. And the truth is that in the Holy Land, the Israelis are fighting those who have destroyed Christianity in their countries as much as they can. They've destroyed it. They've destroyed the churches. They've killed the people. They're still working on it in Syria. In Egypt, Christians are abused like hell. That's the battle. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The youth of today will be the leaders of tomorrow, and it's more critical now than ever that we train up the next generation to fearlessly defend conservative values. The Heritage Foundation's Young Leaders program equips young conservatives with the principled foundation and policy knowledge needed to stand up in a world increasingly hostile to conservatives. The Young Leaders program is more than an internship. Participants work right alongside Heritage professionals, and they learn valuable workplace skills. They attend weekly policy briefings from Heritage's top experts and have access to practical skill-building workshops. They visit historical sites in Washington and even unparalleled mentorship opportunities. If you or anyone in your life is looking to spend a semester in our nation's capital with the best and the brightest of the conservative movement, please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Go there today. Learn more about the Young Leaders Program. Applications for the spring semester close October 5th, so you have to hurry. Our nation's future depends on patriots like you, spreading the word to make sure the next generation is equipped. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's two very big stories out there, in addition to all the other stories, and that is Jack Smith, the former rogue so-called special counsel, monitoring private phone calls of Republican members of the Senate and the House. Now, when you put that on top of what they did to Donald Trump, Obama, and the rest, you can see what we're dealing with here in America. They throw out all the words, all the cliches about authoritarianism and Hitler and all the rest. These people are extraordinarily dangerous, and they're extraordinarily violent. And they're getting worse. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this guy running for Attorney General in Virginia. You've heard all about him now. I want to get into it more deeply. There's nothing new that I can report to you on this so-called negotiation involving Hamas and so forth, other than to say, Israel, don't give another inch on anything. Don't agree to anything else. You made a deal. Now there's additional negotiation. Qatar's involved. Egypt's involved. Qatar and Egypt back. At least Qatar does back Hamas. Don't give another inch. Period. What did you say, Rich? I couldn't hear you. All right. We've got a lot more, America. On this very busy Monday, we'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. Look, it's a bad day in America, let's be honest, with this ICE stuff and everything else. The Democrats pushing us to the brink of civil war. The new Democrat Confederates, that's what they are. The new Democrat Confederates. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, under Biden, under Obama, has been used to destroy Republicans. It's been used to try and destroy Donald Trump. And now we learned it's used to try and destroy Republican members of Congress. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what authoritarianism looks like. This. Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee at a press conference today about this extraordinarily grotesque abuse of power. Cut 21, go.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. And Chairman Grassley, thank you for your leadership in making this happen. This is an extraordinary revelation that just took place this afternoon. My colleagues and I found out, all of us Republicans, by the way, that we were placed under investigation by this FBI, under the Joe Biden FBI that was led, I presume, by Jack Smith and his predecessors. This isn't the first time that it's happened, though. Senator Johnson just mentioned this. I served on the Trump transition team in Trump Tower in 2016. Senator Blackburn was vice chair of the transition committee then, as were probably a dozen or more members of Congress. To think that we were all surveilled back then by the Obama FBI. This corruption runs deep, and it's gone on for far too long. And the fact that it's happened here again, the fact that they are looking at our records in 2023, sitting members of the United States Senate. Again, the only thing that we have in common, the only thing in common in this entire list is that we're all Republicans. Yeah. They've decided to come after us. This is as partisan as it gets. The FBI and the corruption that's running there has to be cleared out. Thank God we have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino there. This has to be addressed. It has to be resolved. It needs to happen today.
Cut 20, Senator Johnson, go.
This is outrageous, what has happened. I just want to give you a timeline of this. I think you've already got the FBI sheet that shows the number of members of Congress that were targeted. Representative Kelly, Senators Graham, Hagerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, myself, Senator Lummis, and Blackburn. Now, this memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. They're casting this net, this fishing expedition against members of the Senate and the House. Again, I've been investigating this with Senator Grassley. This doesn't surprise me, but it should shock every American of what the Biden administration has done. And by the way, this isn't the first time I was targeted by the FBI. Under the Obama administration, the same thing happened to both Senator Grassley and I. As part of the Foreign Influence Task Force, we were giving a briefing to try and convince us that the Hunter Biden laptop was no big deal. Basically, trying to throw us off the track. So this is major corruption that's being revealed inside the Obama and Biden Department of Justice, the FBI.
Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, cut 22, go.
What we know is this, that the FBI under Joe Biden and under Barack Obama, that they exercised activity that they had no authority to exercise. And as Senator Hagerty mentioned, we know what they did in 2016 to the Trump transition team. And now we find out that after the Mar-a-Lago raid, after the indictment of President Trump, They surveil us, people who support President Trump, members who are all Republicans. But it shows you how out of control and rotten to the core and politicized the FBI had become, and how they had absolutely no problem at all whatsoever with political weaponization. We appreciate the information we've gotten today. We look forward to further investigation on this.
Mm-hmm. You believe this, folks? You believe this? And it's not the headlines on most news stories. It's not the headlines. Some of them aren't even reporting it. The Fox says FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino briefed Senators Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, Ron Johnson, Marsha Blackburn, and more today on what has taken place here. It is, folks, they use this January 6th to the Democrats and their thugs to violate the Constitution. We don't believe in violence and rioting and that sort of thing, but let me tell you something. When our government is involved in such activity, it is far more dangerous than anything that took place on January 6th. And this is what you have to look forward to in New York with Aman Dami. This. All bets are off now. We're living in an extraordinarily violent period where Jews aren't safe, where the president isn't safe, where people who are public and conservative aren't safe. That's what's going on in this country right now. We have mayors and governors who are telling local and state law enforcement not to back up ICE when ICE is under attack, when people are literally shooting at them and throwing rocks at them and surrounding them. Seems to me any cop should violate any order like that, whether you're federal, state, or local. You have to come to this defense of your brothers and sisters under all circumstances, in my humble opinion. But you'll notice this is only in blue cities and blue states. There's no problem with deporting illegal aliens in any of the red areas. You don't even hear about them, do you? No. You don't even hear about them. But here we have the federal, this guy, Jack Smith, needs to face the music. This guy needs to be punished through the Department of Justice. They're already investigating for his conduct. A very sinister saboteur undermining our system of government. They brought him in from The Hague. And it's amazing to me, whose name do you not hear, Mr. Producer? The former Attorney General, Merrick Garland. You don't hear a thing about him. He was the Attorney General. None of this could have happened without him. Why is it that he avoids scrutiny by Congress? He ought not avoid scrutiny by the Department of Justice, but why is it that he avoids scrutiny by Congress? He was the White House hitman. Remember, he withheld the taped interview of Joe Biden done by the special counsel investigating Biden and so forth. He came up with a phony defense that would not allow the release of that prior to the election in order to cover up for Biden. Same Democrat Party that did cover up for Biden and his relative insanity. And this dangerous party is a dangerous party. With Bernie Sanders, the Stalinist. This is trouble. I'm just telling you now, folks. Now, scheduled to come on is the great governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is something else. He really is fantastic. And he has sent his National Guard, I suppose at the request of the president, to both Chicago and Portland. We're going to delve into that. He also wanted to come on the program to talk about October 7th. So we'll try and get it all done. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Our society works because of the freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment. Everyday Americans should be able to speak openly and honestly about family and traditional values without retribution from the government. And that's a principle Pure Talk proudly supports. They sponsor my show, which allows me to stand strong behind the microphone every day and share the truth with you. If you want to support brands that defend freedom and pro-American values, I strongly encourage you to switch your wireless service to Pure Talk. You're going to get great 5G coverage on an extremely reliable and secure network, and with plans from just $25 a month, you'll save a ton of money. And Pure Talk also believes in creating American jobs and supporting America's small businesses. So if you're a small business owner, you can save even more while enjoying white glove service. Stand with the companies who share your values. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my favorite wireless company right now, Pure Talk, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. Make it today. One of the great governors of the country of Texas here, Governor Greg Abbott. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and you're a great patriot. You really are, because you see what's going on in these other states, which is outrageous. They're like nullifying federal law. You know, you're trying to enforce federal law when the federal government was nullifying federal law on immigration. Here we have cities that have just announced we're going to have ICE-free zones. We're not going to deport people. You've got governors backing them up. It's almost as if we're having a rerun in a weird way of the Civil War here, that they're like breakaway cities and breakaway states. What's happening with the National Guard? But these judges are now stepping in.
Well, it's a continuation of what President Trump talked about on the campaign trail, and that is a problem that's dogging the Democrats is they support criminals more than the citizens who vote for those senators and representatives. It is outrageous because they're putting public safety at risk. They're putting lives at risk. They care more about the people who are here illegally than they care about their own citizens. But very importantly to what you're talking about right now, as you're kind of suggesting, listen, Texas stepped up, and we're proud to help out the president with our National Guard, the elite Texas National Guard, trying to ensure the safety of operations of federal employees, which the president is entitled to ensure. And so that's why we are helping to deploy them to Illinois, to Oregon, to wherever the president needs them, to make sure that the president is going to be able to carry out his function of executing the laws of the United States of America, which is all that ICE is doing.
But we have like this, this is like reverse federalism. You know, it's the powers left to the states. The states don't get to grab the power of immigration away from a president. For instance, when Biden was in office, he refused to execute, as he's required to under the Constitution, our immigration laws. And there's Texas and other states having to fend for themselves, and they're trying to shut you down. And we have the same party now that had open borders, pushed open borders, that's saying that our new president has essentially no power to deport illegal aliens. And then we have some of their judges, or one judge who's kind of a weirdo Republican, I guess. She wrote what's like an op-ed piece in the Washington Post going on. And I said, what kind of lawyer is this? It's a mess, isn't it, Governor?
Well, it's insane because, listen, the Democrats lost elections in a big way this last cycle, and now they're doubling down on the same reason why they lost the election. Americans want laws to be enforced. That includes immigration laws. Americans don't want illegal immigration into our country. They want to make sure that we have a legal process for immigration. They don't want criminals coming here, whether they be coming from other countries or coming from within our own cities. And they want a president who's going to stand up and enforce the law. As you pointed out, we had a president in Joe Biden who refused to enforce the immigration laws of the United States, and Texas had to fend for ourselves and secure our own border. And now we have a president who's actually enforcing the law, and we have leftist governors, progressive governors, who were pushing back, saying that they want these illegal immigrants in their communities, but more importantly, they want to interfere with the president's ability to enforce the immigration laws of the United States.
You know, Governor Abbott, when I look at that party, they're almost like on a kamikaze mission, you know, with boys and girls bathrooms and open borders, and now what they're doing with ICE and Mandami and all the rest of it. I mean, this party, I mean, what the hell? I mean, don't they want to get elected?
Well, the nail in the coffin is Mandami the commie, and when he destroys New York, it's going to be the end of the Democrat world as we know it, which is going to be bad for New Yorkers, but it may be good in the long run for the United States because already in Texas, there have been so many Democrats who have realized that the Democrat Party actually does not represent them. It's actually the Republican Party. Go back and remember what election night looked like this last November when President did something that had not been done since the 1800s, when almost every border county in the state of Texas, which had traditionally been blue, turned red because of very common sense principles. One was securing the border. Two is to stop illegal immigration. Three, that you mentioned, most Democrats don't want boys and girls sports. That's common sense. It's fairness, it's safety, and it's security, which is the last issue. And that's public safety. It's Republicans standing up fighting for public safety. It's Democrats fighting for criminals. And it's for one, it's outrageous, but it is the death knell of their party.
And yet, they must, I don't know, they must not think so. I think this is the Democrat Party fighting with itself and dragging the nation into this fight. Does that make sense to you?
Well, Mark, listen, it's a continuation of what was taking place with Kamala Harris, and now you have all these, the governors of the three large Democrat states, California, Illinois, and New York. They're battling to see who can be the most leftist, and what they have to do to have any hope of getting any Democrat nomination is to appeal to the progressive left, appeal to the people who are attracted to Mandami in New York. And so they're fighting for the very small sliver of the electorate out there, seemingly unaware that it is repelling and antagonizing most of Americans and common sense Americans. And I can tell you for a fact, common sense Texans. Texas is a state that's a law and order state, and I think most states are law and order states. Most citizens of our country want law and order. They want public safety. They want elected officials to fight for them and fight for their safety, not to fight for illegal immigrants and the criminals who are harming their own citizens.
You know, Governor, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but, you know, when I think of presidential candidates going forward, I do think of you. I really do. I mean, it's the biggest of the Republican states. It's a very diverse state. I hear very little criticism of you. I mean, of course, from the left, but they don't count. And you've had quite a battle there with the Biden regime. You did, and you're very supportive of this current administration. I see a lot of governors who really would make great presidents. Again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Has this crossed your mind, or maybe being a running mate or something like that?
So, Mark, you are the great one. But on this on this issue, listen, I'm focused only on Texas right now. You do bring up a very important point, though, and that is the Republican Party has a very long and strong bench. We have proven governors, other proven Republican leaders who are ready to make sure that the country remains on track, as well as a more than capable vice president, and J.D. Vance, who's doing a fantastic job. So there will be.
I want to hold you over. That music means I have a hard break. I want to get into a few more issues with you because you're doing a fantastic job helping the country and Texas, of course. We'll be right back. Our society works because of the freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment. Everyday Americans should be able to speak openly and honestly about family and traditional values without retribution from the government. And that's a principle Pure Talk proudly supports. They sponsor my show, which allows me to stand strong behind the microphone every day and share the truth with you. If you want to support brands that defend freedom and pro-American values, I strongly encourage you to switch your wireless service to Pure Talk. You're going to get great 5G coverage on an extremely reliable and secure network, and with plans from just $25 a month, you'll save a ton of money. And Pure Talk also believes in creating American jobs and supporting America's small businesses. So if you're a small business owner, you can save even more while enjoying white glove service. Stand with the companies who share your values. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my favorite wireless company right now, Pure Talk, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. Make it today.
Mark the 10, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with the great governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor Abbott, I know you wanted to talk a little bit today about the upcoming second anniversary of October 7th, the horrendous slaughter of the Israelis. And so I wanted to give you the floor a little bit to comment on that. Go right ahead, please.
Well, it was an act of genocide. It was the largest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And the world must remember this. The world must remember those who were lost on October the 7th, those who've been lost in the war since, those who are being held hostage right now, and they must be released. And I'm hopeful about what President Trump is talking about the possibility of peace. And we need to recognize, had it not been for President Trump and Netanyahu, we wouldn't even be close to a possible agreement to end this horrific war that the world has really faced, but especially those in Israel because of the attack by Hamas. But to achieve peace, Hamas must understand that all hostages must be released. And, Mark, I got to tell you, I've seen some talk, but I haven't seen any action. It's time for Hamas to step up to the negotiation plate and deliver action, deliver hostages, and get beyond just the talk. Every son, every daughter, every brother, every sister, every mother, every father held captive in Gaza must be returned home. It's that simple.
Amen. Governor, there's this horrific rise of anti-Semitism all over the world and in our country. And I know the president is doing everything he can, and he wants to do more to fight it, but what do you make of that? I mean, it's in every corner of our country right now.
It's one of the most shocking developments that we've seen over the last couple of years, and I'm sure that it was on the rise some before October the 7th, but it sure exploded after that. And we've seen deadly threats, dangers in communities across our entire country, and I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could in the state of Texas to make sure that we are fighting back against anti-Semitism, but also we're doing everything we can to keep places and people of faith protected. And so I've done things like create the Texas Holocaust, Genocide, and Anti-Semitism Advisory Committee. They are my eyes and ears to let me know of anything to be concerned about, and we've directly responded to concerns they've raised. I've also, because of ongoing attacks against places of worship, I deployed the Texas Department of Public Safety to enhance security at places of worship like synagogues and our churches. But also, I know that you recall back when the protests were taking place on our college campuses. Mm-hmm. I saw what was going on at Columbia. I saw what was going on at UCLA. I saw what was going on at other campuses. And so when these protesters came to the University of Texas in Austin, and they tried to pull that stunt here, I said, not on my watch. Am I going to allow our campuses to be hijacked by these protesters? And I had the Texas Department of Public Safety there, National Guard, and the moment they pulled out a tent to set it up, we had them arrested. And you know what we found? Most of the people who were arrested, they weren't students. They were paid protesters. And that's the problem we have around the country. Around the entire country are a bunch of paid protesters who are trying to gin up antagonism amongst our fellow Americans, and it must end.
We have some foreign governments like Qatar that are pouring billions of dollars into our colleges and universities. I just feel more needs to be done about it. There's no reason that so much money needs to be poured into these colleges and universities by countries and so forth that have, in many respects, a hostile view of our country, pushing sort of this Islamism and so forth and Marxism and so forth. What do you make of that?
It has to end is what I make of it. And I'm proud to see what President Trump is stepping up to take action on it. And it must be policed. It must be ended. And, you mentioned Qatar. If I recall correctly, they've been the home of some of the people who were involved in Hamas and some of the people who were involved in the attacks. And so this is dangerous business that the president has alerted the country to, and campuses across the country either have or must respond.
Mm-hmm. By the way, what do you make of the Cowboys? They had a pretty good game Sunday, huh? I
tell you what. So they had a good game on.
Now be careful. I'm from Philadelphia. Be careful now. Go ahead.
I know. And listen, hey Mark, I'm not sorry that the Eagles lost this past weekend.
Somehow I knew
that. But listen, look at the points the Cowboys have put up the last two games. Because remember, the game before this one, they put 40 points on Green Bay. And so they actually may have some offense showing up. If they can get their defense to play consistently, they may turn out okay.
I actually think you're 3-4 players away from a really, really good team. But we'll see. I'm not rooting for them. I'm like I say. But at least, I hate to say this to my brothers and sisters in New York, but at least we're not there. I mean, you got the Giants and the Jets, and between the two of them, I think they have one victory, right?
Something like that. But I know one thing you would enjoy, I think America would enjoy, and that is a playoff game between the Eagles and the Cowboys. That would get a lot of excitement across the entire country. And
I'd be very excited about it.
Time is due for the Cowboys to win that game.
When I first got out of law school, I worked at Texas Instruments. And I worked there for about 6-8 months, and then I went right into the Reagan administration. But is it still there, a great company and so forth?
Listen, Texas Instruments is still there. They're adding more semiconductors. Little known fact, Texas has led the United States in semiconductor manufacturing and exports for more than 10 years. And that's before there's a new Texas Instruments semiconductor plant going up for $30 billion. There's a Samsung plant going up just north of Austin for $44 billion. Texas will not be compared to other states in semiconductors. It's going to be Texas and one or two other countries in the entire world. Semiconductors are the lifeblood of all this artificial intelligence, of the robotics, of actually the future of warfare. The future of space is taking place in Texas because of the SpaceX operations that are already here. And so we're seeing incredible excitement in the state of Texas about literally building out the future of our country and the future of the entire world.
Last question, Governor, and thank you for all this time. We much appreciate it. So the additional seats have been added. They're locked in. They're enshrined. Is that correct? House seats?
Yeah, so all the maps are drawn. The maps are passed. I signed the law. It's in litigation as we speak right now in a 3-judge panel out in El Paso. And the case is going well, but unable to predict the final result. But I believe that the maps should be upheld, and there should be 5 additional Republicans in the United States Congress because of the redistricting maps that we passed in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, great job. You're welcome here anytime, Governor. We really appreciate what you do, and you're really at the point of the spear on so many issues. So God bless you, my friend. Be careful and be safe.
Take care.
All right. You too. I forget where I bumped into him. I think it was Christians United Drill, but I think that's where it was. He's really a good guy. Really good. And he's overcome so much. There he is jogging one day, and there's apparently a storm, and a major big branch off of a tree falls on him and obviously paralyzes him from the waist down. A lot of people could give up when something like that happens. But he didn't give up, and he truly is a great governor. I look at Joey Jones on Fox. look at Congressman Mast, who I have such great admiration for, both those men, and others too. And what's really strange is since I had my accident, I certainly didn't lose a limb, so I'm not comparing myself to that. My admiration has even grown much more because I know how difficult it must be. And by the way, when I watch these football players now, Mr. Producer, and they get injured in these horrendous ways, their ligaments, their tendons, their bones and everything, I cringe. It's much harder to watch. I mean, I love it. I'm always going to watch it, but it's much harder to watch. And by the way, Giants and Jets fans in New York, don't blame me. I'm not the owner. Don't blame me. I don't have control over this. I'm just stating the obvious. New York City is a great city. It deserves better than two teams, one that hasn't even won a game yet, and the other one I think has won one. I'm just saying. And while I'm at it, with the Philadelphia Eagles, that ref call, I watched it over and over. It stunk. Somebody should have thrown a flag, and at a very minimum, New York, could have looked at it, but they didn't. Too bad. Oh. Mr. Producer trying to put me back to work here. I'm having too much fun. And I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Our society works because of the freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment. Everyday Americans should be able to speak openly and honestly about family and traditional values without retribution from the government. And that's a principle Pure Talk proudly supports. They sponsor my show, which allows me to stand strong behind the microphone every day and share the truth with you. If you want to support brands that defend freedom and pro-American values, I strongly encourage you to switch your wireless service to Pure Talk. You're going to get great 5G coverage on an extremely reliable and secure network, and with plans from just $25 a month, you'll save a ton of money. And Pure Talk also believes in creating American jobs and supporting America's small businesses. So if you're a small business owner, you can save even more while enjoying white glove service. Stand with the companies who share your values. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my favorite wireless company right now, Pure Talk, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. Make it today. By the way, our ratings are killing it. Killing it. Thanks to you. Thanks to you. So in the Oval Office today, you heard it, the president said he never told Netanyahu to stop being negative. He's been great. So the reporting by Axios, hitman, radical left-wing, Mr. Anonymous source, Ravid, was false. Will they run a correction? Of course not. Phonies and frauds. It's exactly what they are. And this war on Netanyahu's character is endless. It's constant. Because he's a winner. Because he's looking out for his people. Just like this war on Trump is endless and constant. Because he's a winner looking out for us. Some of these days are very challenging in terms of what's going on in this country and around the world. But I always have hope because we have Donald Trump in the Oval Office. Really. Just a remarkable man. Smarter than every advisor he has. Smarter than everybody that reports to him. And I'm telling you now, when he leaves that Oval Office, it is going to be a sad, sad, sad day. Don't you think, Rich? He's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. It'll be a sad, sad day. So if a federal judge appointed by President Trump, and he doesn't know these people, they're recommended to him, and this gal was probably part of a deal, but apparently she's a Republican. Apparently she worked for a time in the prosecutor's office with Ken Starr, who was one of my dear friends. And I don't care. She's an idiot. She doesn't know the law. She doesn't know the Constitution. And as I mentioned earlier this morning in my post, she wrote a piece that reads like an op-ed for the Washington Post. That's just ridiculous. The Insurrection Act may have to be triggered by the president to overcome all these obstacles by these frauds and phonies and fools. As I told you earlier, it's been used multiple times. But, of course, the Democrats who are inciting violence, who are inciting riots, who are inciting attacks on federal law enforcement the way they incited attacks on local law enforcement in 2020. The Democrat Party, which is a violent party, that's its history, from the Civil War to the civil rights battles and more. If the president uses the Insurrection Act, like, oh my God, you can't do that. What is he, a dictator? I don't know, was John Kennedy a dictator? Lyndon Johnson? George H.W. Bush? Abraham Lincoln? Thomas Jefferson? Cleveland? And all the others who used the act over 20 times? And let me tell you something. What I saw taking place in Portland and Chicago last night, there's no reason not to call on the Marines. No reason not to. And for those out there listening who think they know what they're talking about because they have a microphone in their mouth or a camera in their face, pay attention to me. I'm going to educate you. Yes, the president has this power. Yes, it's an 1807 law. Yes, it's an exception to posse comitatus. Yes, we used it when I was chief of staff to Attorney General Meese in the Reagan administration. Yes, we used it to put down the Atlanta riots, the Atlanta prison riots, the prison riots. And it can be done. And it has been done many times. It's not frivolous. In fact, the president could have pulled the trigger already. He's waiting. He's trying to resolve this. He's actually a man who's not a big believer in using overwhelming force until he must. Until he must. There's just too many stupid people on TV and radio. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's just true. Too many ignoramuses. Or if you prefer, ignoramuses. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Our friends at the New York Post, we're going to have Winsome Earle-Sears, the candidate for governor, the current lieutenant governor, on the program. She was actually scheduled a week or so ago to be on the program. Timing is very good, but she will be on the program in about 15, 20 minutes. This program has been loaded with guests because there's very big issues, and we're happy to have Dinesh and Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Sears. Virginia's Democratic Attorney General candidate Jay Jones chillingly suggested that if more cops got killed after being stripped of legal protection, they would shoot fewer people, according to new claims from an ex-colleague in the state legislature. Now, he's a former Democratic representative in the Virginia House of Delegates. He's already facing calls to drop out after Republican delegate Carrie Connor, or is it Coiner, revealed 2022 text exchanges. I mean, these are 3 years old. 3 years old, between them, in which he suggested he would shoot then House Speaker Todd Gilbert over Adolf Hitler and said Gilbert and his wife should have to watch his fascist children die. They were 5 and 3 years old, just so you know. This guy's a mental case. He's sick. Shouldn't be running for Attorney General. He should be running from the Attorney General. Corners come forward with new allegations against Jones, telling the Virginia Scope Monday that during a 2020 conversation about qualified immunity, she told Jones that without the legal protection, police officers will get killed. Well, maybe if a few of them died, that they would move on, not shooting people, not killing people, Jones responded, according to Conyer. And Jones previously supported bills to remove qualified immunity while he was still a member of the House of Delegates. This guy should be running, for a position with Mamdani, don't you think, Rich? Corner doubled down in a statement to the Post and asserted that Jones is unfit for office. She said, "My position is very clear. It is never acceptable to think that killing people is a justifiable method to achieve party changes, period. Anyone that advocates for killing someone, for disagreeing with them, is not qualified to serve." Do you know not a single leading Virginia Democrat has told him to step down? Do you know not a single leading Democrat in the House of Representatives or the Senate has told him to step down? At the DNC? Now, Jones denied the new allegations, of course. He's got quite the reputation. "I didn't say this. I never believed and do not believe that any harm should come to law enforcement," he goes on. The Post reached out to Jones for comment. No luck. Now, Conyer told the outlet that Jones pointed back to his stance on police and removing immunity protections during a heated phone call in 2022, when he said Gilbert, that former Speaker of the House, might change his staunch pro-gun stance if he or his wife lost one of their children. After their call ended, Conyer followed up with text to condemn his flippant suggestion. She said, "You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's child would die," she wrote to him. He responded, "Yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy." The controversial Attorney General nominee is currently duking it out against conservative incumbent Jason Miyares. Now, I notice some of my friends in this business on TV are talking up this guy, Jason Miyares, as a truly solid conservative. He's not. He's a rhino. But he's better than this guy. There's no question, better than Jones. Better than Jones. And I say that because of what they've done to a gentleman and his wife who owned a private zoo. And he allowed a deputy of his, a bureaucrat, to basically destroy these people and destroy their business and destroy the zoo with false allegations and bully tactics. And he wouldn't step in and stop it. That means something to me. So, again, most of these commentators don't know what the hell they're talking about. He should be reelected, but mostly because his opponent is a mental case and dangerous, in my view. Dangerous. In 2021, roughly 53% of voters in Virginia Beach cast a ballot for Miyares as Attorney General. And, of course, the Republicans won, led by Youngkin. And now our friend Sears, she's running for governor. And she's a good lady. She's a conservative. She is solid, as a matter of fact. Now, this shutdown, I told you most of you wouldn't feel it, but some will, but most of you won't. There's actually a great piece in the Wall Street Journal today by Michael Salon. He is senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, and he just says, what's at stake in the government shutdown? Now, I've told you before, it's not really a shutdown of the vast majority of the government. But if the Democrats get their way, pandemic spending will become permanent, and bankruptcy will get closer. So it's even worse than it's being discussed, even by the Republicans in our media. It's not just that they want a couple $100 billion to give health care to illegal aliens, which they do, and to give health care to people who are more than able to work, able-bodied, but they won't put in 20 hours a week. That used to be the requirement until Biden got rid of it. No, it's worse than that, you see. They want to make permanent all the pandemic spending that was supposed to be one-time emergency spending to deal with the pandemic, because the Democrats are drunken Marxists. They're drunken Marxists. They will destroy this country. The CBO projected federal revenue of $43 trillion from 2018 to 2027. Later projections, it estimated the 2017 tax cut of nearly it goes on, but you get the point. There it is. It's a good piece in the journal. Now, back to this guy Mondami. This guy Mondami is a sick bastard. He's a crazy nutjob. He's a throwback. You know, they like to say they're so futurist. No, he's a throwback to the Stalin era. Just like Bernie Sanders, just like Eyach. They're a throwback to the Stalinist era. That's why they're all cowards. Not one damn one of these people will come on this show. Mr. Producer, will you put out the request again for Mondami? I'm serious. Let's do it. So here he is in a picture. He cozies up, as the front of the New York Post has it, with a Ugandan politician who supported life sentences for homosexuals. This was only a matter of time. If you're an Islamist, you can't put up with this. You favor the elimination of homosexuals. How many times did we see pictures of cranes in Iran? Do the people in New York know what the hell's going on here? Seriously. I want freebies. I want freebies. Mondami cheerfully cozies up to Ugandan politician who supported life sentences for homosexuals. Now, this probably won't affect most of the people who want to vote for him. So what? I want a free bus ride. Capitalism's unfair. Gimme, gimme. Take from him and give to me. And she was not just in fact, she was the architect of Uganda's anti-gay law. He's happy to be with her, of course. Can I ask these newspapers a question? Why are the fonts so small? I know you want to put a lot on the pages, but my God, you can barely see it. I don't care your age, if you're 20/20 eyesight or what it is. I mean, you really have to close one eye to read this stuff. You really do. Let's see here. Mondami. Mayoral frontrunner Zorhan Mondami flashed a bearding smile in a cringeworthy photo with a top Ugandan official who pushed harsh anti-LGBT policies that included life imprisonment for gay people. Mondami met with Rebecca Yabadaba in July during a break from his campaign trail. So these aren't things that happened, when he was 12, 7 years ago. No, they're all recent. I didn't know where she stood. Yes, you do, a-hole. Why do you keep lying about everything? You hate Jews. You hate gays. Yes, you hate capitalism. You hate America. You hate cops. Let's be honest. He met with her in July, doing a break in his campaign trail after winning the Democrat primary, included a lavish celebration of his recent nuptials at a secluded Ugandan compound owned by his family. This is so sick. This is so sick. Delighted to meet with Zorhan Mondami, including incoming mayor of New York City. Good luck in the next phase of elections, she said. And then there's a photo of Zorhan Mondami and his Marxist bastard father, and Zorhan's, as he returns to New York after his traditional wedding in Kampala. And there you have it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The station's heard all over the country. This program is over 400 outlets. Some people count stations that really can't be heard. We're heard on all of them, and that includes all throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the lieutenant governor is Winsome Earle-Sears. She's been fantastic. She's a solid conservative. She is a Marine, and she's running for governor now. And, of course, there's a big scandal going on in Virginia. Winsome, and it involves the attorney general candidate for the Democrats, and yet the gubernatorial candidate, and this is crucially important race, she is mealy-mouthing the whole issue. She will not condemn this guy who basically was urging the murder of the former Speaker of the House of Representatives. And Spanberger has basically mealy-mouthed that she has no principles, does she?
No, thank you, Mark, for having me, and hello to all of your listeners. This is the state, unfortunately, apparently, of the Democratic Party. And I noticed that our Senator Tim Kaine said, well, this is not the usual for Jay Jones and his character. And so he still stands by him. What in the world? Jay Jones, who's running to be our Attorney General of our great Commonwealth, advocated for murder. Murder for the then Speaker, a Republican, his opponent. And then if that weren't enough, he doubled down later on and said, yeah, and his 2 kids should be killed too. And, you know, instead of saying, you know what, I'm young, I'm stupid, I shouldn't have done that. I was trying to make a joke, and it went badly, and I know I should know better because I'm an attorney. I'm an attorney, I should know better, I'm an officer of the court. No, he doubled down. And now he's caught, he gives some, apology. But then did you notice, Mark, not too long after, he went back to, and by the way, this is a faction of the Trump party that's pushing Trump and Trump and Trump. So there goes the apology out the window. And all my opponent, Abigail Spanberger, who is running for governor of our great Commonwealth, said, well, she was disgusted and upset about all of this and urged him to make it about. Is that all you are? Mm-hmm. In murderous comments, you're disgusted and upset? No character, these people.
What is amazing to me about your opponent is she's a fraud. She pretends she's a moderate, a centrist. She's a radical. She says, she didn't want to talk about Jones anymore. She doesn't want to talk about boys and girls' bathrooms anymore. She doesn't want to talk about anything that she actually supports, like the Attorney General, like boys and girls' bathrooms. Yes. And she just wants to move on. She thinks she's going to slide by, doesn't she?
That's what she thinks, but of course we're not going to let her. And with the help from your listeners, if they could help me by sending along some funds, we can really, really make another dent in this race. And so if they would go to winsomesears.com, then we could really use that support. But let me tell you, I just saw where he, again, had said, this is Jay Jones, our Attorney General candidate from the Democratic side. He said, well, we needed to defund the police and get rid of their qualified immunity. Now, you know that I support our police because I'm not stupid. Who are we going to call? Who's going to come rescue us? And these are the men and women, law enforcement and Department of Justice.
Well, Winston, we have a lousy connection. But I hear what you're saying. This guy doesn't want immunity for police officers. As a matter of fact, he says more of them die, then maybe they'll shoot less people. Let's Mr. Producer, let's try and get a better line real quickly because we only have a few more minutes with her. She's a very dynamic candidate. She would be a great governor. And, of course, the Democrats, if she were liberal, they'd be slobbering all over her, right? Because we haven't had a black woman governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia, really the heart of the Old South during the Confederacy. And they don't want it to be a Republican either. They don't want it to be a Republican. Well, putting all that aside, she really is solid. She's conservative. She's fiscally conservative. She's right on all these other issues and so forth. So, of course, the Democrats are trying to paint her as an extremist. They've got tons of money. I don't know where they get it. They always have tons of money. How we doing, Rich? Working on it. Okay. Well, we hope to have her back soon, but I was going to let it go, but it was getting too bad, the line. So hopefully we'll have her. What's that? All right, she's going to call us back as soon as I have her. We'll put her on. But this guy running for Attorney General, he's basically been handed his jobs because his parents are apparently political powerhouses in the district that he used to represent in the state assembly. And now he wants to be the Attorney General. All these people, even the lieutenant governor candidate, she's an Islamist. I mean, this is a real clown show. These three statewide candidates on the Democrat Party side. And you see this more and more. Either absolute crazy leftists, Marxists, Islamists, or they pretend to be moderates because, like, she'll come out of the CIA or something like that, and you just assume, well, if you're there, you must be conservative. It's not true. That's not how it works. And Virginia has become a blue state that can be winnable, and Youngkin demonstrated that. All right, Winsome, we got 1 minute left. What do you want to tell America?
I need your help. Go to winsomesears.com and support my campaign. As Virginia goes, generally goes the rest of the country, and we've got to make a statement here. We've got to plant our flag and take a stand. We're going to take a stand for righteousness, for common sense. We must not have boys in girls' bathrooms. We must not have men in our girls' locker rooms undressing. It's happening in Virginia. It'll come to a state near you. We must continue to create jobs in Virginia, and we must make sure that we are safe and secure and our taxes are low. My opponent, Abigail Spanberger, is going to undo all of that. We need your help in Virginia.
Amen. And we'll put that on all of our social sites as well. Good luck and be safe. God bless you.
Mark Levin on the front line of liberty. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
I have in front of me an audio clip list where the Chicago mayor calls ICE and the people supporting them extreme right who refuse to accept the results of the Civil War. How sick is this? You have Pritzker, who bought himself a governorship. ICE is going after black and brown people. He says it's over and over and over again. And just so you know, not all, but most of ICE is black and brown. And of course, Pritzker is white and fat and stupid. Then we have Tammy Duckworth, who you never hear of. But she came forward and she said Trump's using Gestapo tactics in Chicago. Got all this? Democrats are fine. Charlie Kirk was murdered a month ago. President of the United States, his candidate as president, was almost murdered. And they just keep at it. They just keep going. The FBI under them went after Republican senators, Republican House members, went after a presidential candidate. We've never seen anything like this, ever. Ever. It gets worse and worse and worse the more that's uncovered. But they just keep at it. They don't give a damn. Let's see here. This Caitlin Collins at CNN is really repulsive. She's another one who used to be sort of a conservative reporter. I believe she used to work for the Daily Caller and Kit Tarleton. But then again, there must be something in the water. I don't know. Let's take a look at this one. Cut 15, go.
But no local officials that you can point to that have said we need the National Guard? Because I spoke to the police chief of Portland last week. He said that the president's claims just don't match up with what's happening.
So let's just stop a second. Why would what kind of a question is this? Why isn't she questioning the police chief in Portland and what his comments are? Instead, she uses the police chief in Portland, who's a nut, in my humble opinion, and applies it against the president. This is all this woman does. I'm sure she'll win some kind of journalistic award, but that means nothing. This is why the American people hate the media. Love the First Amendment, but hate them. Go ahead.
I would encourage you as a reporter to go on the ground and to take a look at it for yourself, because there's been many members...
No. She's just going to quote Democrats. That's all. That's all. She's not going to go and look on the ground. No. She's not that courageous. Go ahead.
Not press in this room, but independent journalists, some of whom we'll be inviting to the White House very soon to share their stories, because they have been in the middle of these riots and they have witnessed the anarchy that is taking place night after night. It's on video. You should play it on your show. You have a great opportunity in prime time on CNN to show your audience. Yeah, but you're probably talking to partisan Democrat officials who are opposed to everything this president does. You should also ask the people who live in Portland. We've actually heard from many members of the community who have said that this is complete civil disobedience. It's a mess. It's been loud. It's been troubling for neighbors in the community who are just trying to live peacefully. And these people are not there to peacefully protest. They are there to cause mayhem and havoc.
Notice how this Caitlin Collins keeps trying to interrupt her, because she has so many brilliant things to say that some Democrat told her. She's an idiot. She's an idiot. And here we have Zohar Hamandani. He's going to save you $8 billion in New York. How's he going to do that? Well, let's see. Cut 17, go.
When it comes to free buses, each rider will save over $2,000 a year. That's $1.3 billion a year for all riders. When it comes to universal child care, we're speaking about $22,200 a year, which together is $5.5 billion.
Okay, stop. This is such a schmuck. So who's going to pay for it? Somebody pays. The billionaires. There aren't going to be any billionaires. They're leaving. Remember? They're going to Florida.
And when it comes to a rent freeze, we are speaking about $1,750 saved every single year. And together that amounts to more than $1.7 billion in its first year. These are the figures that add up in the lives of New Yorkers. These are the figures that together would save the people of this city more than $8 billion.
I don't know what hit us here. Am I clear now? Okay, good. But I want the audience to know our main line was killed. Our backup line was hit. I think we're under attack, Mr. Rich. So we don't know what happened, but we're back. Mr. Producer took the North Korean equipment and rubber band and some chewing gum. But nonetheless, we're going to take a good look at this tomorrow, right, Rich? Yeah, we have to, because these things don't just happen. The main line was dead. The backup line was screwed up. As far as I know, we only have about, 15 minutes left. We could get hit again. I'm not kidding. We could get hit again. That's what's going on here. We're live and national. Yes, we be. So when I was rudely interrupted by whomever, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if everything could be free and just save money and everything would be great, don't you think everything would be free? Has this not been tried in human history? Now, here's what happens when you give away free things. You run out of them. Who's going to pay the the bus drivers? Who's going to pay the subway engineers and the people who walk through the subway and check things? Who's going to pay these people? The billionaires? No, they're not. They're leaving. They're not staying for this crap. They're not stupid. Who's going to pay for this stuff?